Steam rises over a vast frozen wilderness as the weekly Pasajero makes its way towards Esquel in southern Argentina. This would have to be the last place in the world today where double-headed Baldwin locomotives can be seen hauling a regular train. Here, 282s numbers 6 and 9 climb in the pre-dawn stillness towards Hojas d'Agua in July 1990. This is a film about the last surviving steam locomotives at work in Argentina. This is Steam in Patagonia. Patagonia, the wild, forgotten tip of South America. Dry and treeless for the most part, a hot, dusty desert in summer, bitingly cold in winter, especially so when the persistent gales of the roaring 40s blow. Bariloche is an Argentinian resort town nestled in the foothills of the Andes. It is also the terminus of a 1,740-kilometre broad-gauge railway from Buenos Aires. Part of the General Roca system, this line has been diesel-worked since the mid-1970s. Ingeniero Hachibachi is the junction for the Esquel line, which is also part of the Roca system. Built to a gauge of 2 feet 6 inches or 750 millimetres, this 400-kilometre branch was completed in 1945 to connect the fertile Andean valleys around Esquel and Trevelin to the rest of the Argentine rail network. It was planned that the Esquel branch would be broad-gauged at a latter date, but this never eventuated and to this day still runs with locomotives and rolling stock handed down from the central Chubut system, which closed in 1954. The Esquel branch is one of 2 lines in Argentina still using steam traction. Both of these lines are found in Patagonia. On arrival at Hojas d'Agua, water is taken. It's a freezing morning, and the slowly rising sun has yet to clear the mountain tops. Another stop for water ensues at the tiny village of Manuelchoica, and extra loading from a failed freight train will be added to the consist. With their large cabs, the outside-framed Baldwins are classic American narrow-gauge products, even down to the arch bar trucks under their tenders. They are oil-fired, and 25 of them were built by the Baldwin Locomotive Company's Philadelphia works in 1922. For a while, it looks like a rare triple header may result. But no, the dead loco is shunted off prior to departure. However, the extra tonnage of the wagons alone will mean hard work for the two Baldwins as they attack the grades ahead on the section to Sierra Mesa. The southern or Esquel end of the branch is solely worked by the German-built Henschel 282s, which also date back to 1922. Next morning, return working from Esquel is seen arriving at La Cancha. The snow-capped Andean Cordillera forms an impressive backdrop to the line which it parallels through much of this region. The Henschels add a Teutonic touch to this Wild West railway operation and are renowned for their ability to stand up to a constant thrashing from their flamboyant crews. A lasting impression of the Esquel branch is that of a tiny train in a huge landscape. The trains are totally dwarfed by the scenery they run through. The Andes dictate where the railway can and cannot run, but in such an arid region, they are also the lifeblood of the railway, as in many places the water used in the locos comes straight from the snow-capped peaks. At El Maiten, the stage is being set for the northbound's arrival. This small desert outpost lies roughly at the halfway mark of the branch, and the main locomotive depot and workshops are located here. At the depot, 2 Baldwins are being prepared to haul the train on the next stage of its journey. A passenger train arrival always creates much activity in the usually deserted station environs. Roads in this part of the country are very poor. For many locals, the train, which they affectionately call La Truchiquita, or the small gauge, remains their major means of communication with the outside world. Locomotive preparations and shunting continue as intending passengers arrive. There seems to be little need to hurry. The train will depart eventually. A freight from the north arrives to add an extra touch of activity to the yard. It almost seems as if the railway is displaying its importance to the audience it temporarily holds captive. Perhaps no one will notice that most of the wagons are empty. Indeed, the main freight traffic on the line is oil for the locos themselves. Anyway, it's a good opportunity to catch up with old friends, stretch the legs, and take in the scenery. It really is no wonder that a journey over the full length of the line takes 18 hours or more. Underway again towards Norquinto, the conductor issues tickets in the confines of the narrow cars. In winter, the pot-belly stoves are much appreciated, particularly at night when the temperature plummets. In the buffet car, ham and cheese sandwiches are readily available. But if one requires something more substantial, such as a thick Argentinian steak, the attendant has to be notified in advance so he can visit the local butcher at the next stop. By the time the train nears the summit of the long climb out of Pitlankau, the sun is just about to slip behind the mountains. The next morning, back at El Mekten, a Baldwin is being lit up at the depot. Steam from a Henschel is used to assist, but it's an operation that can't be rushed. The air temperature had dropped well below zero during the night, and boiler stress would result if things were heated up too quickly. Once steam has been raised, number 9 moves off to begin its day's duties as shed pilot. Later, the Henschel will work a section freight north to Cerro Misa. The following week, the Esquel passenger is worked from Hakobachi with a single Baldwin number 6. Although the rolling stock is minute, this is no toy railway. On flat sections, a brisk pace of around 70 kilometres per hour is usually maintained. Not bad for 2'6". As it departs Manuel Choiqui, number 6 has developed a steam leak which is very noticeable with the temperature so low. Once again, the temperature is just above freezing and light snow begins to fall as the train works its way around the series of horseshoe curves at the foot of the aptly named Cerro Misa, or Table Mountain. Cerro Misa station is located some kilometers past the flat-topped landform of its namesake. Engines are changed here, and a fresh Baldwin is ready to work the train onto El Meten. Leaving town, the train climbs through the Rio Chico Gorge. The trains share the wide, empty landscape. In years gone by, the railway carried wool from the estancias and fruit from the orchards near Esquel. But as in so many for the development of roads and automobiles. El Meten is reached late in the afternoon. The final loco change occurs here, and the Henschel backs on for the run through to Esquel. It looks as if the load of pipes from the stranded freight 2 weeks earlier may finally reach its destination. Despite freezing conditions in winter, snowfalls on the vast plains of Patagonia are surprisingly rare. This is due to the rain shadowing effect of the Andes. When snow does come, plows are hastily fitted to the tiny locos, and the ultimate battle with the elements begins. Experiencing difficulty with icy rails on the long climb to Ojos de Agua, this Henschel had left its train behind and proceeded light engine in an effort to clear the line ahead. Because the frozen snow just covered the railheads, its snowplow was of no use. The loco's predicament caused a passing road tanker driver to stop for a look. He even lent the steam crew a shovel to help clear snow from the rails. Being an oil burner, their loco didn't have one on board. After the firemen's repeated efforts to clear the ice crust, further attempts had to be abandoned when the loco's water supply was getting dangerously low. Eventually, the train retreated to Hakubachi, and services were temporarily suspended. During this time, the only loco in steam on the system was at El Meten, where the services of La Pequeña, or the little girl, were required to assist with a loco overhaul. This tiny engine is probably El Meten's best-kept secret. Very few rail fans have actually seen this Henschel-built 060 tank, which spends most of its time in the confines of the workshops, an area usually off-limits to visitors. Inside the well-equipped workshops, all facets of locomotive and rolling stock maintenance were being undertaken. Because of its gauge, the Esquel branch is effectively isolated from the broad gauge network to the north and, by necessity, is self-sufficient in all areas of operation. A little end is being fitted to a Henschel. Positioning of the loco is critical, and this will require a degree of skill from the little tank's driver. The afternoon before the next week's passenger was due to run, an attempt was made to reopen the line. A special snow clearing train is seen leaving Hakobachi with an unusual combination of Henschel and Baldwin motive power. Good progress was made along the dual gauge section to the branch's actual junction point, 18 kilometres out. The left-hand rail is used by broad gauge trains, whose rails are 5 feet 6 apart. By the time the problem section near Ojos de Agua was reached, however, it was a different story. Once again, the carriages were uncoupled, but even with 2 locos, any progress up the grade was extremely hard won. The organisers had left it far too late in the day to have a real show of success. With the ensuing dusk, temperatures dropped below 0 and water from melting snow turned back into ice. Despite working late into the night, the attempt failed and the line remained closed for several more weeks. Patagonia's other steam-operated railway lies far south of the Esquel branch. In fact, the Ferrocarril Industrial Rio Turbio is the world's most southerly railway. It is operated by the Argentine Coal Board and carries low-grade coal from the mines of Rio Turbio on the Chilean border to the east coast port of Rio Gallegos. The 256-kilometre line opened in 1951 and was also built to a gauge of 750 millimetres. Sunday is a day of rest on this railway, and stabled locos at Rio Gallegos shed appear to be in hibernation after a blizzard during the night. Next morning the sun was shining, but the temperature was still sub-zero as number 105 headed out of town with empties bound for the mines. Despite silent protests of lethargy from frozen axle journals and somewhat noisier ones from local dogs. Initially, Henschel 282s identical to those still at work on the Esquel branch were used. But in 1956, 10 large 210-2s arrived from the Japanese builder Mitsubishi. Another batch of 10 locos with only minor exterior differences was delivered from the same builder in 1963. 18 of the 210-2s remained trafficable in 1992. Providing ample motive power for the railway's needs. There's something about a railway whose locos burn what they haul, and the fogista, or fireman, is busy shoveling those man-sized scoops to keep the boiler pressure hovering around 1,200 kilopascals, or 175 pounds per square inch. After the road crossing west of town, 105 has got its load, a standard block of 51 coal cars and a passenger coach, rolling along nicely. These locos are fitted with mechanical stokers, but most firemen lay a thick bed of coals with a shovel before using them. For the first time since leaving Rio Gallegos, steam is shut off on the approach to a lonely whistle stop. There's nothing here, just a passing loop in the middle of nowhere, although an old carriage has thoughtfully been provided as shelter from the gales in case any hapless soul should be waiting for a train. Although not advertised as a passenger-carrying railway, many trains do provide accommodation, mainly for railway and mine personnel. A short stop ensues for the driver to oil round and check the Walschaerts valve gear on those tiny 33.5-inch driving wheels. The isolation is splendid, if not a little eerie. A vast, empty, windswept plain stretches in all directions, as far as the eye can see. Further west, number 105 climbs out of Pedro Buena in fine style. The size of these 210-2 or Santa Fe type machines is deceptive. From a distance, they could be large American standard gauge locomotives, but from close quarters, this illusion is soon shattered. However, these gutsy performers do a man-sized job, and with their tractive effort of 10,870 kilograms, or nearly 24,000 pounds, they are certainly big power on a 2'6" railway. As it heads inland, the line generally follows the broad valley of the Gijegos River and climbs gently but consistently. The weather deteriorates as the day progresses and the temperature steadily falls. By the time the small settlement of Beja Vista is reached, there are traces of snow beside the line. 105 meets a loaded train bound for Rio Gijegos here. The loco of this train is number 119, one of the second batch of Santa Fe's built in 1963. These locos have been rebuilt using the efficiency-improving principles of Argentinian engineer L.D. Porter, which include gas producer fireboxes and modified exhausts. The camera catches the glow of the fire through the air holes in the walls of the firebox as the loco passes. As the loaded train heads for Rio Gijegos, number 105 continues its journey to the mines. The next day, a loaded train is seen climbing towards Glen Cross. With almost a kilometre of train behind its auxiliary water tank, number 107 makes a fine sight as it lays a trail of smoke up the valley. Waterbirds congregate on a line-side marsh. They are unconcerned by the noise of the approaching train. Extinct mini-volcanoes pepper the landscape in this vicinity, and the rare, the South American relation of the emu and ostrich, can often be seen. A few kilometres down the track, 107 is having problems restarting its train after stopping for an oil round. There is a problem with the loco's sanding gear, and starting 1,200 tonnes of train on the long grade towards the Gallegos River without sand is no mean feat for both man and machine. Despite the narrowness of its gauge and diminutive rolling stock, the Rio Turbio Industrial is a high-volume mover. While the future of this line with steam operation looks relatively secure in the short term, there has been talk in recent years of ordering narrow-gauge diesels to replace the steam fleet. Also, the feasibility of building a new standard gauge line along the present route has been studied. With this in mind, one wonders how long steam in Patagonia can survive.